The colony on Erythra Prime was a beacon of human ingenuity, a world transformed into a paradise among the stars. Its cities glittered beneath the alien sun, towering spires reaching skyward, a testament to the unyielding spirit of humanity. For decades it had thrived, its people living in peace, unaware that they were being watched. In the cold void beyond their world, something stirred, a predator cloaked in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the Zyran fleet arrived, it was like the sky itself shattered. Thousands of ships, bristling with weapons of unimaginable power, emerged from hyperspace and rained death upon the unsuspecting colony. Orbital defenses were obliterated in seconds. The Zyrans gave no warning, no ultimatum. The bombardment was swift and merciless. Cities crumbled beneath a storm of fire, oceans boiled under plasma barrages. The screams of billions were silenced as their world burned. The Zyrans called it a necessary act of prevention. In their broadcast to the galaxy, they justified the slaughter with calculated arrogance. Humanity was too ambitious, too resourceful, too dangerous. Allowing them to expand further was a risk the Zyran Imperium could not afford. The galaxy listened in silence, unsure whether to applaud the Zyrans' audacity or recoil from their ruthlessness. But humanity's silence was short-lived. In the heart of Earth's high command, the response was unanimous. Diplomacy had been humanity's shield for decades, but this betrayal demanded retribution. The United Human Command sent out a single transmission to all their scattered forces, invoking a contingency plan buried deep in their archives. Protocol Aegis, humanity's long-dormant war doctrine, was activated. Across 100 systems, hidden bases and clandestine fleets received their orders. Factories shifted overnight from peaceful production to mass-producing the tools of war. The galaxy expected humanity to plead, to negotiate for survival. Instead, they heard a message broadcast from the shattered remnants of Erythra Prime, **. You have made your choice. Now let us show you how we fight. **. The Zyrans laughed. They saw humanity as an upstart species, bold but foolish, daring to challenge an empire that had stood unopposed for centuries. Yet the laughter ceased when human ships began appearing on the edges of Zyran-controlled space. These weren't the clunky, untested vessels the Zyrans had dismissed years ago. They were sleek, silent, and deadly. Entire Zyran patrols vanished without a trace. Supply lines were severed, leaving colonies to starve. Strategic outposts, once thought impregnable, were reduced to debris fields in the void. Still, the Zyrans refused to acknowledge the growing storm. Their leaders issued hollow assurances to their people, insisting the humans were merely lashing out, that their retaliation would burn itself out soon enough. But the humans didn't burn out. They escalated. Reports began to trickle in from the survivors of early engagements. They spoke of weapons that defied comprehension, massive graviton cannons that could crush entire fleets in an instant, EMP blasts that rendered Zyran war machines useless, swarms of autonomous drones that outmaneuvered even the most advanced Zyran pilots. These survivors, the few who lived to tell their tales, were filled with a terror that spread like wildfire through the Zyran ranks. Erythra Prime was a graveyard now, its ruins a testament to the Zyrans' hubris. Yet even as the colony's ashes cooled, humanity's resolve burned brighter. Across Earth's remaining territories, recruitment centers overflowed with volunteers. Humanity had been wronged, and the cry for justice was deafening. Soldiers trained relentlessly, engineers worked without rest, and scientists pushed the boundaries of possibility. The Zyrans had lit the fire, now they would feel its full fury. The first major blow came at the Andurian Nebula, a strategic choke point heavily fortified by the Zyrans. They had stationed one of their largest fleets there, confident it would halt any human advance. But humanity didn't approach the nebula head-on. Instead, they came from all sides, using advanced cloaking technology to bypass the Zyran perimeter entirely. When the Zyran fleet realized what was happening, it was already too late. Human ships emerged from the swirling gases like phantoms, raining destruction on the Zyran fleet. In less than an hour, the nebula belonged to humanity. With every victory, the Zyran Imperium's confidence faltered. Their leaders had underestimated humanity, dismissing them as a minor threat. Now they were faced with an opponent that was not only determined but terrifyingly capable. The galaxy began to take notice. Whispers spread of humanity's vengeance, of their unrelenting pursuit of those who had wronged them. Other alien factions watched with a mixture of fear and fascination, wondering if they would be next. And yet, amidst the chaos, the message from human command remained clear and unwavering. This was not revenge. This was not bloodlust. This was justice. The galaxy had seen war before, but never like this. When humanity struck back, it wasn't a retaliatory outburst, it was a symphony of precision and devastation, orchestrated by centuries of preparation. The Xyrans, despite their dominance, were unprepared for the scale and sophistication of humanity's response. What they thought would be a brief skirmish had become their worst nightmare. Humanity's war fleets emerged from the void like specters, silent and lethal. These ships weren't just advanced, they were engineered for perfection. Each vessel carried weapons that bypassed conventional defenses, shields that adapted to enemy attacks, and AI systems that processed strategies faster than any organic mind could comprehend. Battles were over before the Xyrans realized they had begun. Fleets were torn apart by graviton imploders, their hulls crushed into singularities. Entire armadas vanished in the blink of an eye, leaving behind nothing but silence. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's capacity for war. They assumed humans had achieved peace because they lacked the will to fight. But in truth, humanity had spent generations mastering war to ensure they would never need to wage it. Protocol Aegis was proof of that, a dormant plan waiting for the day someone was foolish enough to provoke them. The Xyrans weren't just losing battles, they were being outmaneuvered on every front. Supply lines critical to their war machine were severed with surgical precision. Advanced stealth fleets infiltrated their territories, targeting infrastructure and leaving planets isolated and defenseless. The Xyrans' vast empire, once thought unassailable, began to fracture under the relentless assault. And yet, humanity's greatest strength wasn't just in their weapons or technology. It was in their ability to adapt. On the ground, humanity's shock troops proved just as formidable. Clad in adaptive power armor, they moved with inhuman speed and precision. These soldiers weren't just fighters. They were living weapons, augmented with cybernetics and equipped with cutting-edge gear. They struck hard and fast, dismantling Xyran forces with terrifying efficiency. Guerrilla tactics turned occupied cities into nightmares for the invaders. Human forces used the environment to their advantage, creating traps that obliterated entire regiments in moments. But it wasn't just the soldiers. Humanity's drones swarmed the battlefields, a relentless tide of destruction. They adapted to enemy strategies in real time, overwhelming Xyran forces with sheer numbers and precision strikes. Every attempt by the Xyrans to counter these tactics ended in disaster. Their weapons, designed for conventional enemies, were useless against the unpredictable, ever-evolving human arsenal. The psychological toll on the Xyrans was immense. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones about the phantoms that hunted them. Stories of entire battalions wiped out without a trace spread like wildfire, eroding morale. Xyran commanders found themselves unable to predict humanity's next move. The humans fought like no enemy they had ever faced, relentless, unpredictable, and utterly merciless. Even Xyran civilians weren't spared the fear. Humanity's reach extended beyond the battlefield, infiltrating the Xyran communication networks. Propaganda broadcasts appeared on every channel, showcasing the devastation wrought by Xyran aggression. But these weren't just threats, they were warnings. Humanity offered the Xyrans a glimpse of what awaited them if they continued to fight. The message was simple: surrender or face annihilation. The Xyrans tried to respond in kind, launching counterattacks against human territories. But every attempt ended in failure. Humanity's defenses were impenetrable, their strategies flawless. Even when the Xyrans managed to assemble a fleet large enough to pose a threat, it was quickly dismantled by human forces. The few survivors who escaped these engagements carried tales of horror, of weapons that defied the laws of physics and ships that seemed to disappear into thin air. Humanity's propaganda machine capitalized on these fears. Every victory was broadcast across the galaxy, not to boast but to send a message. The Xyrans had chosen this war, but humanity would decide how it ended. Other alien factions watched in stunned silence, realizing that they had misjudged humanity. What they once saw as a peaceful, unassuming species was now revealed as a force capable of reshaping the galaxy. The Andurian Nebula was a turning point. It was here that humanity demonstrated the full extent of their tactical brilliance. The nebula was a strategic choke point, heavily fortified by the Xyrans. Their fleet was unmatched in size, a wall of ships meant to block any human advance. But humanity didn't engage them directly. Instead, they used the nebula's dense gases as cover, deploying stealth ships to infiltrate the Xyran defenses. When the attack came, it was swift and devastating. Human forces struck from all directions, catching the Xyrans completely off guard. Their fleet, so confident in its strength, was reduced to rubble in less than an hour. The few Xyran ships that managed to escape were pursued and destroyed. The nebula, once a symbol of Xyran dominance, now belonged to humanity. The galaxy was beginning to understand the full scope of humanity's capabilities. The Xyrans had underestimated not just their strength but their resolve. Every battle, every victory, sent a clear message: humanity was not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for survival, and they would stop at nothing to ensure it. Yet amidst the chaos, one thing remained constant. Humanity's focus never wavered, their tactics never faltered. They were relentless, efficient, and utterly uncompromising. This was not a war for territory or power, it was a lesson. And the Xyrans were learning it the hard way. The Xyrans were breaking. Not just militarily, but mentally and emotionally. Humanity's response had been so calculated, so devastating, that even the most loyal soldiers began to question the wisdom of their leaders. Whispers of defeat spread through Xyran fleets like a virus. Entire regiments hesitated to engage, paralyzed by fear of what awaited them on the battlefield. The once mighty Imperium was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance and the relentless onslaught of humanity. What terrified the Xyrans most wasn't humanity's overwhelming force, but their mastery of the mind. Humanity understood that wars were not just fought with weapons, but with fear and doubt. Their attacks weren't just physical, they were psychological. Xyran commanders found their secure communication lines infiltrated, their orders intercepted and altered. Misinformation sowed chaos within their ranks. Supply ships were rerouted into traps, leaving entire battalions stranded without food or ammunition. Command centers found themselves issuing orders that played directly into humanity's hands, unaware they were being manipulated. Propaganda became humanity's most effective weapon. On every Xyran world, broadcasts appeared without warning. They showed humanity's victories, not in triumph, but as warnings. Images of fallen Xyran fleets, entire planets liberated from their control, and soldiers laying down their arms in surrender were accompanied by a simple, chilling phrase: "This is mercy. Remember it." The broadcast spread unease, even among the civilians who had once trusted their leaders without question. For the first time, they began to wonder if their Imperium was truly invincible. Within the ranks of the Xyran military, the cracks widened. Junior officers, disillusioned by the leadership's failures, began to mutiny. Fleet captains ignored orders, retreating from battles they knew they couldn't win. Entire squadrons deserted, choosing to vanish into the void rather than face humanity's wrath. The High Council, desperate to maintain control, issued harsh punishments for insubordination, but this only deepened the divisions. The soldiers no longer feared their own commanders as much as they feared the humans hunting them. Xyran civilians were not spared from humanity's campaign. While the humans refused to target civilian populations, they ensured no Xyran world was untouched by the war. Blockades choked off resources, leaving cities on the brink of collapse. Strategic strikes disabled planetary defenses, making it clear that no one was truly safe. Yet, with every act of destruction, humanity left a message, an opportunity for surrender. Those who laid down their arms were spared and treated with dignity. Those who resisted were destroyed without hesitation. The propaganda machine targeted not just fear, but guilt. Human broadcasts reminded the Zyrans of their initial attack, of the billions of innocent lives lost on Erythra Prime. The destruction humanity wrought was framed as justice, not vengeance. They showed the galaxy the faces of human survivors, children orphaned by the Zyran assault, cities reduced to rubble. It wasn't just a war, it was a reckoning. Among the Zyran leadership, the fractures became impossible to ignore. Younger council members, horrified by the Imperium's failures, began to argue for peace. They saw the writing on the wall. Humanity wasn't just fighting to win, they were fighting to ensure that the Zyrans could never rise again. But the hardliners, blinded by pride, refused to yield. They believed that one decisive victory could turn the tide. What they failed to understand was that humanity had no intention of giving them that opportunity. When a Zyran officer finally attempted to negotiate, it wasn't out of altruism, it was desperation. He transmitted a plea to human command, begging for terms of peace. The response was cold, almost indifferent. Humanity didn't negotiate from weakness, and they had no intention of granting the Zyrans an easy way out. The officer's message was met with silence. Hours later, the Zyran fleet he commanded was obliterated in a single strike. Humanity's message was clear, asterisk. You ask for peace only after losing the ability to fight. Such arrogance deserves only silence. Asterisk. This act sent shockwaves through the Imperium. Even the most loyal Zyran soldiers began to question their cause. They had started this war believing humanity would crumble under the weight of their assault. Instead, they had awakened an enemy that refused to stop until the Zyran Imperium was dismantled piece by piece. Yet, amidst the devastation, humanity offered a glimmer of hope. For every captured Zyran, there was a message, asterisk. Surrender, and you will live. Fight, and you will not. Asterisk. It wasn't mercy, it was pragmatism. Humanity had no desire for unnecessary bloodshed, but they would not tolerate defiance. The Zyrans who surrendered were treated well, returned to their people with a single warning, asterisk. This is the cost of your leaders' decisions. Do not make us repeat this lesson. Asterisk. Humanity's campaign wasn't just about defeating the Zyrans, it was about dismantling their empire from within. The propaganda, the psychological warfare, the relentless attacks, they all served a single purpose, to make the Zyrans realize that resistance was futile. And it worked. The Imperium's once unshakable confidence had been replaced by despair. Their fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, were reduced to scattered remnants, too afraid to face humanity head-on. As humanity's forces closed in on the Zyran homeworld, the High Council found themselves isolated. Their military was in shambles, their people on the verge of rebellion. The younger council members, desperate to save what was left of their civilization, attempted to seize power, but it was too late. Humanity's message had already reached their doorstep: surrender, or face extinction. The Zyran homeworld, a sprawling jewel of civilization, stood as the final testament to their empire's once untouchable dominance. Its skies, once alive with bustling trade ships and patrol fleets, were now an ominous graveyard of shattered vessels. The human fleets loomed in orbit, silent and unyielding, their weapons trained on the planet below. This was no mere siege, it was an ultimatum. Humanity's message reached the Zyran leadership without ceremony. It was not a plea, nor a negotiation. Asterisk. Surrender unconditionally, or your civilization will end today. Asterisk. The words resonated with the cold finality of a guillotine's blade. For the first time in millennia, the Zyran High Council felt powerless. Their fleets had been shattered, their worlds stripped of defenses, and their people now looked upon them with contempt rather than reverence. Yet, even in the face of annihilation, pride and fear of subjugation kept the council divided. Below, the Zyran populace braced for the end. Civilians watched helplessly as humanity's warships blotted out their sun. Cities fell into uneasy silence, their vibrant streets now filled with whispers of rebellion and surrender. Every Zyran knew what was coming. The only question was whether their leaders would choose survival or destruction. Humanity had no need to wait. They had proven their dominance, and patience was a luxury they afforded only to those who surrendered. The first strike came not as an act of malice but as a reminder. Humanity targeted key Zyran military installations, erasing them with surgical precision. The blasts were not excessive, they were exact. Each strike demonstrated humanity's restraint, their ability to destroy without collateral damage. Yet the message was clear: they could level the planet if they wished. The High Council fractured under the pressure. The younger members, desperate to save their people, pushed for immediate surrender. The older hardliners, clinging to the remnants of their pride, refused to bow. They believed humanity would eventually relent, that the destruction was merely a bluff. But as the bombardments continued, erasing centuries of Zyran infrastructure in minutes, it became clear that humanity's resolve was absolute. For humanity, this was not about destruction, it was about control. Every move was calculated, every strike deliberate. They dismantled the Zyran defenses piece by piece, ensuring there was no chance for a counterattack. Their fleets remained in perfect formation, unmoving except to reposition for the next wave. It was a display of power so overwhelming that even the galaxy's other empires, watching from a distance, began to wonder if they could ever stand against such force. The final blow to the Zyran spirit came when humanity landed on their homeworld. It wasn't an invasion, it was a demonstration. A small contingent of human shock troops, clad in their impenetrable power armor, marched directly to the Zyran capital. They faced no resistance. The streets, once bustling with life, were empty, their inhabitants too afraid to step outside. The Zyrans had no soldiers left to defend them, no weapons capable of stopping the humans. The march was not a battle, it was a declaration. When the humans reached the steps of the High Council chamber, they delivered their terms. There were no negotiations, no debates. Humanity gave the Zyrans a choice: unconditional surrender and disarmament, or total annihilation. The Council's hardliners, faced with the stark reality of their failure, tried to stall. They demanded guarantees, sought ways to preserve their pride. But humanity had no patience for theatrics. Their response was simple: asterisk. We are not here to debate. Choose. Asterisk. The decision came not from the Council but from the people. Across the planet, Zyrans took to the streets, demanding an end to the war. They had seen the broadcasts, witnessed the destruction of their fleets, and understood that humanity's mercy was the only thing keeping them alive. The Council, cornered and powerless, had no choice but to capitulate. They signed the terms of surrender, their once proud empire reduced to little more than a footnote in galactic history. With the Zyran surrender, humanity's task was far from over. They did not seek conquest, nor did they demand tribute. Instead, they dismantled the Zyran war machine, ensuring it could never rise again. Their demands were harsh but just: reparations for every destroyed colony, redistribution of resources to rebuild the systems devastated by Zyran aggression, and the complete disarmament of the Zyran military. The Imperium's vast wealth was turned toward rebuilding what they had destroyed, not for humanity's gain but for the galaxy's future. Humanity's final act was perhaps the most chilling. They broadcast one last message, not just to the Zyrans but to every species across the galaxy. Asterisk. This war was not our choice. But its end is ours to define. Let this be a lesson: war is not a game. If you insist on playing, know this: we invented it. Asterisk. The galaxy stood in stunned silence. Empires that once viewed humanity as insignificant now saw them as the ultimate arbiters of power. Fear mingled with awe as the reality of humanity's capabilities sank in. The Zyrans, once the dominant force in the galaxy, were now a broken people, their future entirely dependent on humanity's mercy. Yet humanity took no joy in their victory. For them, this was not a triumph, it was a necessity. The cost of war, the lives lost and worlds destroyed, weighed heavily on their shoulders. But they had sent their message, one that no one in the galaxy would ever forget. Peace had been their choice, and war had been their response. Now, they would ensure no one made the same mistake again. As the human fleets departed the Zyran homeworld, leaving behind a humbled and disarmed empire, the galaxy knew that the balance of power had shifted. humanity had proven their mastery not just of war but of restraint. They had shown that their greatest strength was not their weapons but their resolve. And as the stars fell silent, one truth remained: humanity was not to be underestimated.